and we continue in our summer and fall study of the book of Genesis, the very first book in the Bible, of course. We are nearing the end of Genesis. We've covered a lot of ground between Sunday mornings and our Wednesday night studies. So let us, on this occasion, read, if we may, and reflect upon together Genesis chapter 45, the first 10 verses. Then Joseph could not control himself before all those who stood by him. And Joseph cried, "Have everyone go out from me." So there was no man with him when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. Joseph wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard it, and the household of Pharaoh heard of it. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still alive?" But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed at his presence. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Please come closer to me." And they came closer. And he said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Now therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. And He has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his household, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. You shall live in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds, and all that you have.'" This is the word of God for us, the people of God. Thanks be to God. And shall we pray? Oh God, I ask that you might polish us, that you might smoothen out so many of the rough edges. And I ask, Holy God, that we might look to the example of Joseph in terms of what is possible for we human beings to do and to accomplish and to become. Give us, I ask, may we desire, I ask, the perspective that Joseph displays in this text. Holy God, you are good, and we thank you, and we adore you. In the name of Jesus, we do pray together. Amen. So, did you happen to notice the moves that Joseph just made? They are, I think, quite remarkable moves. Joseph does two things here. One, he decides not to hold a grudge against his brothers. And two, he goes one step further and he even forgives his brothers. Notice, if you will, again, verses 4 through 8. These are incredible moves that Joseph makes. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Please, you guys, come closer to me." And they came closer. And Joseph said, "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now," he says to them, "do not be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For the famine has been in the land these 2 years, and there are still 5 years in which there will be neither plowing or harvesting. God sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to keep you alive by a great deliverance. Now therefore, it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, and lord of all his household, and ruler over all the land of Egypt. Do you all remember the breakdancing craze from the 1970s and the 1980s? Bridget, are you too young to know about that? Well, okay, good. In the 1970s, Vicki, do you remember this? In the 1980s, there was a breakdancing craze across our land. Let me help to jog your memory a bit more. Do you remember parachute pants? These thin pants that guys would wear, I guess made out of materials similar to a parachute. They had pockets and zippers. I had a silver pair. I had a red pair. I had a black pair. I had a blue pair. You remember that? I was never that good at breakdancing. However, I did pick up a move here or there. And from time to time in my household, I'm not making this up, from time to time in my household, I am requested to do the worm. I don't know if you all remember the worm or not, but I am pretty, or was rather efficient with the worm. So Joseph, if you can picture Joseph doing the worm. Joseph busts a move or two in this text. He does not hold a grudge against his brothers. It's a beautiful move. And then he decides to forgive his brothers. Another magnificent move. Wouldn't you, in your life, like to be able to perform moves like Joseph? Wouldn't it be nice in your life, and wouldn't it be nice in my life, if we had the ability to let the grudge go and forgive? What if we could do that with people who have wronged us? What if we could let the grudge go and forgive those who have wronged us? Life would be so much more pleasant. Day-to-day living would be so much more enjoyable if we could truly let the grudge go and forgive those who have wronged us. I suggest to you today, as your pastor, I suggest that it was Joseph's perspective that enabled him to let the grudge go and to forgive. You noticed his perspective, didn't you, when the text was read? It sticks out like a sore thumb. Joseph says to his brothers, Joseph says, do not be angry with yourselves. Do not be angry with yourselves. God sent me here. You did not send me here. Now, again, I know you tire of me saying this, but I don't know what it's like to have siblings. But it occurs to me that what Joseph has done here is he has let his brothers off of the hook. How many of you that have brothers and sisters, when there's some kind of quarrel, you are willing to just let them off of the hook like that? Well, that's exactly what Joseph does. Now, we had a nice discussion on Wednesday evening about Joseph and how harsh he was to his brothers. We talked about the money in the sack. We talked about holding Simeon back. We talked about the silver cup and how harsh Joseph was to his brothers. And we came up with a couple of possibilities. Perhaps he was testing them to see if they were truly sorry for what they had done. Testing them to see if they might do the same thing again. Perhaps he was trying to cover his emotions with his gruffness. Whatever the case, there are other possibilities as well. But in this text today, in Genesis chapter 45, Joseph treats them with the utmost of kindness, and he just lets them off the hook, and he says, do not be angry at yourselves. God sent me here to preserve life. So Joseph has a God perspective. Indeed, Joseph views his life through a theological lens. That's what we people of faith do. That's what we people who believe in God do. That's what we people who believe that God revealed Himself most fully in the person of Jesus the Christ, that's what we do. We look at life through a God lens. What is God doing? How is God moving? And it's not always an easy task to perform, but Joseph does this here. Even with his theological perspective, I suggest, Joseph still could have remained angry with his brothers. Remember that they were jealous of Joseph. Remember that they sold Joseph into slavery to the Ishmaelites. Remember that they then passed off Joseph as dead to their father Jacob. All of this led to Joseph spending time in jail for a crime he did not commit. Remember what the offenses of Joseph's brothers were against him. Joseph could have turned the other cheek and still harbored resentment. One more time. Joseph could have turned the other cheek and still harbored resentment. Isn't that what we sometimes do? Someone wrongs us. We experience an injustice at the hands of someone else. Something happens in life that clearly is not fair. And as Christians, we know that we are to forgive others' trespasses as our trespasses are forgiven. And we perhaps feel guilty if we don't forgive, or we struggle to forgive because we know that we are supposed to give. So we do not seek revenge against the person who wronged us. We may even be cordial towards the person who wronged us. However, we live day in and day out with resentment. We turn the other cheek, indeed we do, but we harbor resentment internally. And it eats at us, and it wears at us, and it fatigues us. It makes us so exhausted. Oh, that we could let the resentment go. Oh, that we could let the grudge go. And oh, that we could ultimately forgive so that we might be free. Joseph, it seems to me, as he busts these moves, he had a depth to him that perhaps few of us obtain. I don't think Joseph's narrative is representative of the cliche, God has a purpose for everything. I'm not always sure what people mean when they say God has a purpose for everything. And maybe some people mean different things than that. Maybe it's a cliche that is just so comforting that we don't really think about it with nuance. But whatever the case, I don't think Joseph's narrative is arguing for that theological perspective. Joseph's narrative does not say that it was God's will that his brothers sell him into slavery. Joseph's narrative does not say that it was God's desire that his brothers then lied to Jacob about the death of Joseph, and that his father carried this grief for at least 20 years. The narrative does not say that God approves of these things that have happened. But what the narrative does say, I think, is this. Is that God is so big and God is so strong that He can take all of the bad stuff. God is so big And God is so strong that He can take all of the stuff that He has no purpose for. And He can bring good out of it. He can make good come out of it. It's not that I don't think. It's a combination of Arminianism and Calvinism, I guess I'm proposing. It's a combination of the sovereignty of God and the free choice of humanity that's at play here. I don't think it was God's will or God's desire or God had predestined that Joseph spend 2 years in jail for a crime he did not commit. No, I don't think that's the case. But what I do think the narrative says is that God is so grand and God is so big and God is so holy and God is so just that He can take the injustices that occur in this life and God can bring good out of them. Does God want us to suffer in jail for a crime we didn't commit, much less sexual assault? I don't think so. But can God make something good happen out of a person who spends time behind bars for a crime she or he did not commit? Yes, God can do that. It's Romans 8:28. For all things work together for good to those who love God and to those who are called according to His purposes. Do you remember in Genesis 50, verse 20? I mean, it's hinted at here, but Joseph says it in the concluding chapter of the book of Genesis. Right? Joseph says to his brothers, you meant it for evil. God has no purpose for evil. God doesn't want evil. God doesn't desire evil. God grieves over evil. He's got no purpose for that. And Joseph says to his brothers, you intended it for evil, but God meant it for good. That is the God of the Bible. That is the God that is revealed to us in the face of Jesus the Christ. I suggest to you, I'm on the same journey with you. I'm working on this myself in my own life. I have not arrived. But I suggest to you, when we look at life through that sort of theological lens, when we understand the sovereignty of God to mean not that God wills and desires evil things and injustices that happen in our lives and in our society, no! But when we understand the sovereignty of God to mean that God can take the evil and the injustices that occur in our lives, in our society, and He can make good come out of that. You see, when we get there, I think, in our understanding of God, that God can take stuff He has no purpose for. No purpose for. And He can bring about the salvation of people. That He can bring about goodness. That, I think, that realization, that understanding, that theological perspective, when we get there, as Joseph appears to be, few of us get there, I suggest, but if we can get there as Joseph appears to be, resentment fades, and we can bust a couple of moves. We can put on our parachute pants, and we can bust a couple of moves, 70s and 80s style. We can let the grudge go. Oh, don't you want to let the grudge go? Aren't you tired of the grudge? We can let the grudge go, and we can forgive. It's all in our perspective, you see.